Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Social Responsibility at Work podcast. I am excited to welcome June, also known as Jumakae, and we're going to talk about so many things today. I mean, we're kind of in this place, I think, of reflection and flow around this topic because June is going to be presenting her talk at the Culture Impact Lab, which I'm very excited about. And I think oftentimes in this podcast, we talk about things like productivity, things like organizational success, and we overlap with the human experience. But one of the things that we're looking to introduce into our model of the Culture Impact Lab is a bit more holistic design and understanding that we're bringing humans into a space to really build community. When we talk about organizational culture, we're really just talking about community building, and that requires an element of the human experience. So I'm excited to talk to you, June, and I'm going to let you do your own introduction. So tell us who you are and what's on your heart and mind today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm June, also known as Jumakae, and Jumakae is actually a portmanteau of my first, middle, and last name, June Marissa Kaewsith. And it was my name back when I was an MC in my 20s. I used to join a lot of ciphers, and I was in the underground hip hop scene, and I was also heavy in the poetry, spoken word scene. And I, uh, I come from Long Beach, California, Chumash Tongva territory. I'm so grateful for that city for the ways that it raised me as an artist, as a community organizer, and what I didn't realize would be the foundation towards my career path as an entrepreneur, because I have always been so passionate about bringing people together, whether it was through open mics or coming together for a common cause and using the arts as a means of engagement. Because I feel like oftentimes, from my small experience working within organizations and being a part of strategic planning meetings, it can be so dry to where we ask ourselves, ugh, when is this going to be done? And I think about how our ancestors, they didn't do much planning. They spent the majority of their time dreaming.
Mm,
And it was within those dreams where so much unfolded without it even needing to be written on paper. And to be in this place where I now get to tap into this ancestral wisdom has been such respite for me, because I also come from the world of DEI. I've only ever worked one full time job in my life where I lasted for 16 months. I was a violence prevention specialist for an Asian American organization. And I would run a lot of the racism, gender, and oppression trainings. And as much as I feel it is so important to get to the root cause as to why it is we have imbalances and injustice here in this country, looking at the 500 years of racism,
mm,
there is so much more wisdom if we are able to tap into the ancestral wisdom that precedes beyond that, looking at the 5,000 years. And in connection to the topic that we'll be exploring in our time together for this upcoming conference, looking beyond the 5 year plan into the 500-year plan and beyond, looking beyond what is it that we want to dismantle, but what is that we are dreaming of building, of blooming in place of that. So yes, let it crumble. But also in that crumbling, there is compost and there is a foundation for fertile growth. And so you mentioned community, and I feel like community has become such a buzzword, like, oh, we got to build community, we got to come together. And yet it feels so much of our connection to community is, what is it that we can get out of community? What is it that I can get from this relationship versus asking, what is it that we can give?
Mm.
I feel like building community gets to be as easeful as breathing. We've overcomplicated what community can look like. And I'm saying this as somebody who comes from this organizing background, who grew up without extended family. And my substitute for a village looked like exploring ways to create my own, only to feel extracted from in the process. That was to my own doing, though. Building community is not the same thing as putting together events where you got to buy tickets and you got to teach a certain piece of content. That can be the start of it. That can be the
Mm.
seed that is planted. But from there, sustainability within community is going to require that we're genuinely interested in this person beyond their titles, beyond what it is that they get paid for, beyond what is it that you do for a living, but getting curious as to what is it that makes you feel most alive. It's going to look like, in the words of Martin Luther King, kitchen table conversations where we're actually having shared meals with each other, which I find is very challenging here in this country as somebody that comes from whose family comes from Thailand, where community building happens when we are cooking together, when we
Mm.
are eating together, where where we are having long periods of boredom together. Can we be bored together, y'all?
I love a good just yeah, being in each other's presence and
Right?
doing boring, normal, mundane. I'm putting in quotation mundane things together. I'm
Yes.
for it. Yes.
Finding sacredness in the mundane is a lost art form. Boredom is a lost art form. And it
Mm.
is within that boredom where our creativity becomes
Yes.
alive. So that was a very long introduction, by the way.
That was, I mean, June, chef's kiss, beautiful. And that's why we invited you to speak to our audience and our community at the lab. And to your point, I mean, I'm hearing a few things. One is there is a deeper ancestral knowledge that we are not even from an organizational standpoint. I have never heard those words spoken within an organization, in a leadership meeting, in a team meeting. We've almost created a separate language and kind of tooling system and way of living that is completely separate from the human experience, or holding kind of the truths of who we are as humans and how we interact from like even an anthropological perspective, right? Like there are things that just like as humans we naturally do these things, and we've created a system that literally retools that into something that is focused on things like productivity and capitalism. And I know we talk quite a bit, you talk quite a bit about decolonization. And you know, as someone who has been a kind of corporate girly, you know, for many decades and then started her own business, I also have this story that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs have, which is I was working in a system that like went against like my entire being, like my values. I felt like a true tension with who I was and like how I was interacting with an organization or a leader. And so I do think it comes down to something a lot more internal. And so I would love, I mean, there's so many things I would like to unpack there, but let me start here, which is how can we use some of the tools you mentioned, like organizing is something I think about quite a bit. And I know you talked about community, which, of course, is something that is also being, integrated into the system of capitalism and how we think about it. So how can an organization or a community or a system or anyone who's like gathering human beings to create a generative experience, um, how can they retool to get back to some of what you mentioned?
I have never heard the word retool until now, and even then it's like, is this really a tool? Because okay, let's break down colonization first. Colonization comes down to disembodiment. It is a severance between our heart and our mind and everything that is below our heart,
Mm,
the connection to our intuition, which actually begins in the gut. It begins in the womb. These parts of our bodies form before our brains. And it's something that so many of us have lost touch with. And so decolonization is also a really hot buzzword right now. And I'm very mindful of even using that phrase. And there's many people that will expand instead into indigeneity, which is
mm,
very important, or even exploring rematriation, coming back to Mother Earth as the wise teacher and as the source, and centering the voices of those that are most impacted by colonization. I'm talking about First Nation people, Indigenous people all around the world. And the journey that I've been on, for me, as somebody who's also run her own consulting and coaching business for 8 years, I realized I was bringing the very habits it is from nonprofit organizations and community organizing into entrepreneurship, where I didn't even realize I was experiencing extreme burnout and still operating from this place of needing to prove myself. and
mhm,
and while I'm so proud of being able to go from making no more than $30,000 a year into, oh my God, look at me making 30K months and multiple six figures. Look at me, I did it.
mm,
I had to come to this realization that I no longer felt safe in my body.
mm,
And so I had to shut everything down and come back to my own why. And so I started looking towards indigeneity, indigenous peoples, as well as my own ancestors, as the very wisdom it is that I needed to reclaim myself and why it is that I'm doing any of this work to begin with. And so, what if we move from retooling into rewilding? And so, suddenly my messaging transformed from the need for personal development into, maybe you just need to disconnect from it all. Maybe you need to stop reading the books, taking the courses. Maybe you need to stop exploring ways to improve yourself, shut it all off, go back into nature, and learn how to be comfortable with stillness and with
mm,
silence. And within that spaciousness is where so many of the answers will arise. And I realized, coming out of this recent sabbatical, is that I was praying for clarity. What is the next step?
mm,
But in my heart, I was already clear on what needed to be done. What I actually needed was the courage to follow through on it, which leads me into my desire for beloved community. And again, shout out to Dr. Martin Luther King, ancestor Grace Lee Boggs, as well as Thich Nhat Hanh, who is this revolutionary Buddhist monk that has very much been also a guide and a teacher. And the very first person who I ever heard use the term engaged Buddhism. And so I was raised as a Buddhist, also had a Christian upbringing, shaped so much of my spiritual path. But within engaged Buddhism, as somebody who grew up with karma being used as a way to spiritually bypass a lot of injustice, like, oh, it's just that person's karma, or even my mom struggles, oh, it's because my karma, it's okay, I'll do better in the next lifetime. Engaged Buddhism is about not choosing the side of neutrality as a Buddhist, but that it is our duty as spiritual beings to speak up, to do something, to say something. And I'm now going into a little bit of Dharma talk here, because this is also so much of what it is I do, is that what we are lacking is this sense of beloved community, beloved spiritual community. A lot of us, especially within personal development and entrepreneurship, is that we are lone wolfing it, right? It's why we are creating spaces like these conferences, workshops, places of gathering, so that we can find our people, so that we can find our pack. But really, what we are doing is calling forth an alliance. And so this is where I had to also discern that my desire for a beloved community was actually other people that shared a similar mission and a vision as me. Because within community, we don't have to be productive. We can just be. A community should be a safe place to land when we're tired. Whereas an expansion of that is the alliance, is the mycelial network. If we want to talk about like going back to source, seeing nature as our greatest teacher, right? Where I actually consider the oak tree as one of my greatest teachers. So I just moved from Long Beach to Oakland, California, Ohlone territory. And when the hurricanes happened in New Orleans, the only thing that did not fall was the oak tree. And why is that? It was because underneath the soil, they were supporting each other at the root. And so each of us that are doing this work, holding down the fort in our own communities, and being that beacon of hope and light as things are crumbling around us, we can't do it alone. We got to find our other oak trees to form this alliance. And this is where we nourish each other versus asking, how is it that we can extract, right? I mean, we're doing that unconsciously. What is it that I can get versus what is it that I can give? But also being that strong oak tree, just as a metaphor, is that we must learn how to nourish ourselves. And the more that we root ourselves, nourish ourselves, find a spiritual practice as much as a physical one, as much as we exercise the brain, as much as we exercise the body, what is it that we're doing to also exercise the heart? Right? When we can learn how to do that, then others will naturally come to seek refuge underneath our shade. We become the place of gathering. And so that's where I'm at right now in moving from retooling to rewilding. Some of us need to shut it all off, get back to nature, get back to source, reconnect with our ancestors, because so much of the root of violence in this world, our mental health challenges, is because we have lost touch with that essence. We have lost ritual. We have lost ceremony. We see it as something that is secondary when community occurred through song, through dance. And so, I got to ask, like, when was the last time you all danced? How many dance parties are we having at these conferences? We're in these rooms with these four walls. The last conference I went to, I'm like, there's no windows in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No natural lights.
No natural
No
lighting.
outdoor area. Yeah.
Where are the plants at? And so this is why I'm like, okay, we want to talk about, and I've been hired well, actually, so organizations that have asked me to help run retreats, many of them, I have to ask them, okay, do you want me to help you with strategic planning or retreats? Whenever they say, this is what we want incorporated into this, we want to make sure that we can also walk away with, our 5-year plan, because we're losing employee morale. And I'm like, okay, we need to discern here,
Mm.
because like let's focus on the retreat, getting people back into their bodies, into their heart, into alignment with why it is they even chose to work here in the first place. And then let's keep strategic planning separate. But I promise you, if you give me this time to provide a space for people to go within and to dream and to rest, then when you do the strategic planning, the answers will come a lot more naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like an emergence from that time away or that time to reconnect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Well, my gosh, we could talk for 3 4 more hours about this topic because I am learning so much from you. I mean, even the rephrasing of retooling, which, like, look, it's in us, right? Like, to the point I made earlier, spending so much time in this system that talks about personal development and productivity and retooling and all of these words that, just in our language in and of itself, how we even interact with each other. I think technology and the consumption that we're experiencing is also like a topic I'd really, when we see each other, I want to get into a bit, because there is something about how do you tap into the knowledge that you already have
Yeah.
versus this constant like seeking the next thing. It's an affliction
Hmm.
almost that we're kind of you know we're
Yes.
taught to do with when it comes to work too.
It's an addiction. And we tie back into capitalism. And let's just look at our brief history, even corporations. How long have they been around, right? Our education system, the school to prison pipeline. I mean, of course, this is probably a whole nother podcast within itself. And so I shared with you that I recently said yes to my first ever full-time job in a decade. And it's so funny you're clapping about that, because, at first, and I was like, oh my God, am I failing at my business because of this? But really what it is like, I'm tired of working alone. I want to be back in the
Yes.
ground. What is happening with the people? And I have been longing, as I mentioned, for alliance, people that are as lit up about this vision and mission of liberation as much as me. And again, this is something that we're going to dig deeper into in person, which is that so much of our identities are tied to our careers, and what is it that we get paid to do versus what is it that makes us feel most alive. It's really it's so specific, I feel, within the United States. And so right now I'm back in education. I am a full-time mindfulness coach at an elementary school, a career that I didn't even know existed. And my whole background, alongside organizing, is arts education. And it was so intimidating for me these past several of years to transition into working with adults. But I realized what I was actually coaching people on at the root of it was healing their childhood and their ancestral wounds. I'm working with people that have the dream careers, the PhD, the very things it is that society deems as success, and get in these intimate spaces where I get to provide a space for folks to share what is truly in their hearts, with still that nudging voice of I'm not good enough. And all of the people that I've worked with are, well, majority of the people that I've worked with are people of color, are children of immigrants who felt like they needed to ensure that they were making their parents and their ancestors proud from all the sacrifices they made. But our ancestors did not want us to suffer. We want to make them proud. We live our life in joy. What would it be like to prioritize peace instead? And so, as I'm working with these little ones, as the teachers that I called in next, I didn't even realize it would be them, is that so much of what we need to do is unlearn. We're coming back to this place of innocence, of curiosity, and of play. And our education system was created in service to the Industrial Revolution, where we are churning out children to be another cog in the machine, and that's not working anymore. And that's why I'm plug, you can watch my TED talk on my TEDx talk on how to connect with your ancestors. But everything it is I say in there, it truly is the driving force of what it is I do, and my messaging around embodying ourselves as these future ancestors, and these little ones are the ancestors returned, right?
Yes.
When the 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 ways that we are pressuring them to figure out what is it they want to be when they grow up, versus seeing them as our teachers when it comes to leading with our curiosity, is what I feel is what a lot of us need to reclaim.
Yes.
And so that's where we're at right now, is we are creating these new systems. And I like to say new with a K, because really we're just remembering who it is we are.
That's beautiful. June, I enjoyed this conversation. I learned so much from you, and I am excited to learn more and to dig into some of the things we're talking about at the lab. I also want to mention the reason why I did my little clap, my little happy dance with you going back in to an organization is we need you. Like
Oh,
these
thank
these
you.
these organizations, these schools, education,
Yeah.
like we need this perspective. And so I am, of course, I hope it's filling your cup and it's aligned with the work
Yes.
you're doing, which it sounds like it is. Um,
Yes.
but just before we let you go out into the world, um,
Clock in. I got to be at the school by 8 a.m. to welcome the kids.
exactly. Tell us where people can find you. We'll make sure your TEDx talk is linked in the show notes. But if people wanted to reach out to follow you to soak up this learning that you've provided for us, where can they find you?
You can go to yourstorymedicine.com. There is a lot of rich resources in there that I've put so much love into. Listen to my old podcast episodes. And also, there is a free guided meditation on there on connecting with our ancestors and so much more. And also on Instagram, you can find me at Jumakae. I have been spending a lot of time offline, and so I value more of these in person, heart to heart connections.
Mm,
And in addition to my now full time role, which is genuinely bringing me so much joy, I am also still finding so much fulfillment in supporting organizations with their retreats and with their workshops in coming back to dreaming beyond that 5-year plan, right? Into this ancestor that we are becoming and walking as if we are that in the here and now. So I'd love to leave you with this question is how is it that you want to be remembered when you are on the other side? What are the stories that the descendants will share about how you chose to live in this lifetime? And so if you want to answer that, I'd love to hear your response.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it is something that I think people who are listening, I would just want to like double underline that question. How do you want to be remembered? What is the legacy that you want to lead? And for me, I think the legacy that I want to lead is one of helping to redefine what work is in the context of the human experience. And I,
Well,
no, go
yeah,
ahead.
keep going actually. Finish your
Yep.
response.
And a lot of the things that you've mentioned around connecting back to self, and in a perfect world, like if I can imagine a world many years from now when I am an ancestor, I actually think about the re-emphasizing of work in the context of how we live. So, how are we thinking about other elements of our lives as more important, and work, and also having the social support for those things, right? I think oftentimes we lean on work for all the social support systems that we shouldn't be. So that is the future world I see with me as an ancestor. So I hope that answers your question, and I'm going to think more on that.
Yeah, well, I have one more question then.
Yeah,
Is
please.
if this future ancestral version of you
Mm.
can speak to your present day self, what are words that she would like to say?
Mm. The word that came to mind instantly, and I don't know if this is a full on sentence or a full thought, but it was just truth teller. Continue to be a truth teller.
Yeah. And I would also say that you're doing the work, babe.
Thank you.
You're
I love
doing
you. I
it.
appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I feel like so oftentimes we get so caught up into what we have yet to accomplish versus taking a moment to
Mm,
celebrate how far it is we've already come.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I thank you for the questions. You've put me in a state of reflection now. So after this call, we're gonna do some more reflecting, and I'm so excited to see you in May, June. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
I'm
taking the
excited to
time.
see you too.